Should be recording. Right, so um yeah, this week was difficult and like the YM was, out of sync until after FOMC where we caught up and then everything aligned again. So there was not much to really use. Not much kind of SMT to be using to take trades. So if you were, strictly following the model that I've given you, it was pretty difficult to trade at all really. And it's December, so it's something we can expect. But from Monday, it was just a straight pump up. We did have Friday slow be taken on YM, but by then we'd already pumped up. So there's no real way to call this move unless you held your long from Friday, because we did have this weekly cycle sequential SMT between Thursday and Friday. So this could have, given you that move on Friday and you could have held it, but of course we're only using the weekly cycle sequential SMT on the day, so with the previous day when we're looking to take a trade. So after we keep pumping up, Tuesday we have no weekly cycle sequential SMT again, no hidden either, and we start moving lower. Quite slow PA, we're just chopping around, so there wasn't really much to be catching here either. I don't think there was a daily cycle either. Nope, so there's no daily cycle sequential SMT either, so it was pretty lackluster price action. So there's not much to really talk about there. There may have been lower time frame SMT fills and stuff like that caused these moves up and down to happen, but not really much to be paying attention to. And then of course on Wednesday we had FOMC, right? So FOMC, we were very bearish on the higher time frame, right? We had no weekly cycle sequential SMT on the highs, I believe. You can see here, true week open, YM touched it perfectly, and that's that cracking correlation. YM reaching the true week open with both of these failing to, right? So there's no real PSPs here. So there wasn't really a way for you to have caught this move using the model. So yeah, FOMC just moved lower. We did have a monthly cycle sequential SMT on the highs, I believe, but that was pretty much it, and that was with YM, and we weren't really using YM because of how out of sync it was, and I believe that this just drop from YM in the week earlier on in the week was necessary. It needed to happen for us to kind of set up for those lows that I spoke about down here, or that I put in the chart analysis section. So FOMC dumped about 1,000 points, which we haven't really seen for a long time, or not really, at least in my trading kind of journey. So we dumped, and then we stopped here. So Friday we had a little pump up because we had this daily SMT fill with this daily gap, and of course we had a bunch of other kind of things as well adding to it. But on the higher time frame, we had this daily SMT fill that offered that TGIF back into the weekly range, right? So on Thursday, after we had this drop, we weren't expecting too much of a move, but after a 1,000 point move, we can still expect a couple hundred kind of points range to form. So we had a small retracement back, and then it's obvious that we're not going to get a weekly cycle sequential SMT, are we? So all we could have looked for was a daily cycle sequential SMT, and we didn't have that either. So it's just PSPs that we could have looked for as a signal to go lower. And you can see we had a 1 hour PSP form here, right? At 9 a.m. So just 1 hour PSP here. And then from there, we kept moving lower. And I think my short on Thursday was, it was at 21671.5. So that was, where's that? Was it 21671? Well, it's in here. And this is where we had a 15-minute PSP within the 1 hour PSP. So you guys can see, this is what I spoke about in that predicting PSPs video on what, where we're using lower time frame PSPs to catch the top of higher time frame PSPs. So on my end, this was a 15. This is bullish, bearish on both of these, right? So it's 15-minute PSP within the 1 hour PSP. And that's that fractal PSP that we want to look for. If I go onto the 5-minute chart, let's have a look. And what's this? This is a 5-minute PSP within the 15-minute PSP, within the 1 hour PSP. So given the fact that we had no SMT, we needed PSPs as a cracking correlation to take price lower. So you can see no 90-minute cycle sequential SMT. I think, was this hidden? Oh, it might have been hidden. No, it wasn't hidden. Just about missed it being hidden. But we only needed PSPs to move lower, right? So we have a 5-minute within a 15-minute within a 1 hour PSP. And then from there, the clear draw was the previous day low. Although it took some time to get there. So here we have that draw being hit. And if you entered on just the 5-minute PSP, if you entered on the close of the 5-minute PSP with your stop at the high, that's a 1 to 14 RR trade. Right, and that's just using the it's up. And that's just using these fractal PSPs. This is what gives us these sniper entries and allows us to get these small stops and these huge RR trades. Right? So that's something to really make sure you get the hang of, being able to predict when the higher time frame PSP is going to form and look for a lower time frame PSP within it. Okay. Then after this, and then we hit the daily SMT fill, we then had Friday pump up. So expecting longs, and I called it probably about here on the Thursday night. I called longs tomorrow, and it's just simple order flow. It's obvious that we're going to get longs. I needed longs as well for a higher time frame PSP to form, to shift the higher time frame sentiment to go for the lows about down here, right? So longs were inevitable, and again we had no sequential SMT, that higher time frame sequential SMT that we like to use, but we had that daily SMT fill, We had a 1 hour PSP here with YM that started the move. Right? Yeah, and then that first long, I think I took, well, we had 9:30. We had 9:30 manipulate. Lower, I believe. I think. So 9:30, and then we had this. This turtle soup of this low. See if there are any PSPs here. No. And then we moved higher from that, right? And then the draw was this high. Now we've had this 1 hour SMT fill. But NQ hasn't traded into the gap. And we're starting to have a reaction off of that. Was there sequential SMT on Friday to confirm the longs? On the high time frame, no. I believe on the lower time frame, there was not either. Oh, there was a daily cycle actually, yeah. Oh, no, there wasn't. There was no sequential SMT on the lows. Yeah. Let's see if there's a hidden. No. So there's nothing. It's just PSPs. But now we can expect price to be back in sync. Or the assets to be back in sync, I mean. So I believe we can start paying attention to YM again. Right? Because the kind of decoupling where the assets are not in sync, that's over now, I believe. Because YM has finished its job. It needed to do this to make those high time frame PSPs. And now, with them back in sync, I believe that we have a shift in the high time frame sentiment. Right, so I believe that these lows are to be hit maybe in the second quarter of the year next year. So in terms of a little outlook, I won't be I'll be trading on Monday next week, because yeah, I'll trade Monday if there's SMT with Friday, but I won't be looking to trade before or after the bank holiday, and on Christmas, of course. And then Friday, I probably won't be trading either. So Monday, I will look for something, but after that, I won't. And then you can see we've had these gaps being inversed on the weekly time frame, the daily time frame as well. We've had a lot of gaps being inversed as well. So I would want to see bearish price action in the coming months. I think for the rest of the year, we might not do much. We might just stay in this range that we've had here. But going into the new year, maybe towards late January, we will begin to kind of see large moves lower. Okay, so that's something that we can see. And ideally, we'd want to see us come out of this range that we're in. Because at the moment, we are stuck within this range, within a range. So we have this range, and we're within a range. So get rid of these. So on Monday, I would want to see something like this, or a sequential SMT on the highs. and then a retracement back into this gap maybe. How do you determine if correlation is bullish or bearish, like one asset? So draw it out. So for example, if so regarding the premium and discount one, say this is one asset here. Say we have this range made. Oh, it's difficult. I'll do it up here. Say we have this range, and so price freeze lower makes range, and we're seeing a retracement. If this one asset it trades into premium, this one fails to trade into premium, we'll be looking to sell, right? And vice versa. If it's, for example, I'll do this. I'll do it over here. If we see this, this range made, or let me do this again. We have a range, and then we trade into discount a one asset like NQ, and then we don't trade into discount on another asset, we look for longs, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I'll find some examples on the chart. Let's try to find something. Okay, here we go. So we have this range being made here. I'll draw the same range. You can see price moves up, creates this range, and then fail to trade into discount on NQ, and then we trade into discount here on ES, right? And then we move higher from there. If that makes sense. Yeah, so it's because in this case the move was bullish, made this range here, and we retraced into discount on ES and then not on NQ. And then in terms of the true open one, for example, using that true week open this week, where is it? It's if YM. Oops. You can see how we're trading below the true week open, and then when YM trades above or touches it, and this one fails to, that's kind of think of it as a failure swing, and then we move lower from there, if that makes sense. And then vice versa, if we're trading above the true open, and then one trade is below it, and the other one fails to, that will give us bullish price action. Regarding true week open, do you look for time frame alignment? I mean, there's a lot of ambiguity around what time frames to use for true opens. I think originally he said the 4 hour time frame, but I think the right one is the 1 hour time frame. So yeah, I'd use the 1 hour for the true week open. Yeah. I guess there's not much to really talk about today. Oh yeah, and then there was this 1 hour SMT fill I was gonna mention. I think it's there's this 1 hour SMT fill I was gonna mention as well, which could have been your reason to short FOMC. So we failed to trade into this 1 hour inversion fair value gap that we do on yes, and then we move lower from there with those. There might have been lower time frame PSPs within here, but not sure. But yeah, run PSPs, 152, all PSPs, 500 PS3 from the last hour. If it raises into it. I tend to not use old PSPs really and treat the wicks there as gaps. I only really look at, so where's that 1 hour PSP? So for example, when we had this 1 hour PSP form on Friday, and we draw the wick as a gap, it's orange. If we did something like this, oops, if we did something like this and then a couple hours later traded back into it, I'm not paying attention to it. I'm only really looking at it on the, so for example, this is the 1 hour. We're only going to look at it for the next candle. So here we traded into it straight after it formed, and then we moved higher. So yeah, like maybe 2-3 hours later, I wouldn't be paying attention to this. Or like PSP's formed on the prior, yeah, on the prior candle. So like you said, on the 5-minute time frame, do I find a 5-minute PSP somewhere? This one. Okay, so this is a 5-minute PSP. So why I'm traded, why I'm close bullish. Draw this. I can see why it did trade back into the wick, but for example here, if price moved lower and then it ended up trading back into over here, I wouldn't be looking for this to hold really. So I wouldn't have been using this wick as a gap to hold price, although it did. It's only the candle after that I'm really looking at it, even though it didn't here. If that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, there's not really much to talk about today. There's not much. There wasn't really any SMT. It was just other forms of crux and correlations that made price trade lower or whatever higher. Just SMT fills and SMT with true opens, which yeah, perfectly fine. Yeah, but in terms of our model, there weren't really that many opportunities with that higher time frame, lower time frame sequential SMT. So it would have been a difficult week this week to get any trades, but using PSPs and other forms of cracks and correlations, that's where we saw the move happen. Right. So yeah, is there any more? You got any more questions? I'll quickly answer. Yeah, no problem. Not much to really talk about, and then I will see if we do one next week because not really expecting much to happen. It might just end up coming a bit more into the scalp. Just chop around a bit.